will continue to compete vigorously with the PRC. But we'll manage that competition responsibly so it doesn't veer into conflict or accidental conflict.
So that from late last night, California, Northern California, President Biden talking to reporters for about 20 minutes after his high-stakes one-on-one meeting with the Chinese President Xi yesterday afternoon. The two leaders meeting face-to-face, first time in about a year. That summit in Northern California. Mike Gallagher is a Republican out of Wisconsin, chairman of the House China Committee. And, sir, thank you for your time. Good morning to you. So they spoke for, what, 3.5 hours or so? And while this was happening, the Chinese Foreign Ministry put out a statement about Taiwan. And then at the end of the press conference last night, this is what President Biden was asked about President Xi still being what he considered a dictator.
After today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that we used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that's based on a form of government totally different than ours.
So before that, there was a lot of nice words between the two. How did you read it based on the output from California?
Well, first, I have to say that President Biden is correct. Xi Jinping is a dictator. When John Kerry, who was in these meetings, was asked whether Xi was a dictator, he refused to answer and instead said that Xi is a major decider. So I expect the president's handlers will be trying to clean that up. As for the meeting itself, it's important to understand that getting this meeting has been the focus of U.S. foreign policy for the past year. The stakes were very high, and thus far all we have are promises of future talks and potentially new pandas coming back to the D.C. Zoo. I'm afraid that's incredibly disappointing because we've taken our foot off the gas when it comes to things like sanctioning Chinese officials for egregious human rights abuses, pushing back against this unprecedented pressure against Taiwan, transparency around the spy balloon or the origins of COVID. So it came at a great cost to even get to this meeting, and I'd hope that more will come out of it, though I do support the establishment of a military-to-military communication channel. That alone won't be enough to deter a PLA invasion of Taiwan.
So, Congressman, you know, it seems to me that the alliances that have been growing in the world, you see North Korea, Iran, Russia, China. And so it's extremely important that the United States strengthen its ties, Australia, Japan, and other countries in the region, which, of course, China does not want to see. So that's sort of the meat of where this reconstruction of the geopolitical world is right now. Do you think they talked about that at all?
I quite honestly don't know if that was a subject of the conversation. I will say a lot of the most important things that happened at APEC had nothing to do with Biden and Xi's conversation, but were precisely conversations among the allies, some of whom you just referenced. There was a trilateral meeting between Japan, us, and South Korea. There was a Quad meeting that was reportedly very constructive. To your broader point, though, we need to push back against CCP aggression in concert with our regional allies. It is the goal of the CCP to sever our treaty alliances in the region and ultimately to push us out of the Pacific all the way back to Hawaii as step one in a multi-step effort to achieve global domination and undermine American leadership. All the more reason why we not only need to reinforce existing alliances, but look to create new ones and bring partners more firmly into the camp of the free world.
Just to put a button on this, what the statement said, I mean, while the summit's happening, okay, Taiwan, the question of Taiwan is the most important and most sensitive issue in China-U.S. relations, end quote on that. Now, we'll move to this TikTok story. Martha, we've been talking about this all morning. Go for it.
So this disturbing trend on TikTok, Congressman Gallagher, of mostly young people, the ones that I saw, sharing Osama bin Laden's letter to America that he wrote the year after 9/11 to sort of describe all of the reasons for what he did and try to justify the attacks on 9/11. And these people responding to this letter, which has now been taken down, saying things like, he was right, this is mind-blowing, my mind is now open, are so deeply disturbing to me as I watched them this morning. And I would imagine that as people start to get a look at this, they will be very disturbed as well. Let's watch some of this.
Girl, what? They found the letter. What letter? The letter. What letter? Osama's letter.
So I just read a letter to America, and I will never look at life the same.
I feel like I'm going through like an existential crisis right now.
So this is a really good example of narrative control.
You know, Congressman Gallagher, they go on to say terrorism was sold to the American people as if these terrorists just woke up and said one morning, we hate America. Let's go kill as many people as we can. And they conclude, one of them, that it was just our government failing. 9/11 was just our government failing other countries. What would you say about this, sir?
Well, these people are, of course, massive idiots. I just came from watching the footage that the Israeli embassy compiled about the October 7th attack. It is horrific. You're seeing Salafi jihadists, Hamas in this case, but Al-Qaeda was a Salafi jihadist organization, kill babies, behead innocent civilians with garden hose. These images are incredibly disturbing and show the true face of evil. So for someone on TikTok to somehow suggest that this is America's fault or that bin Laden, who killed thousands of innocent Americans, was right is absolutely disgusting and further evidence that we need to ban TikTok or force a sale before a Chinese-controlled app, before the Chinese Communist Party checkmates the free world by controlling the dominant media platform in America that can spread this dangerous, disgusting nonsense. It is time for a ban or a forced sale before it's too late.
Just to put an emphasis on it, the letter is 21 years old, and people felt like it just came out today. Mike Gallagher, thank you for your time. I know your feelings on TikTok, and we'll see whether or not eventually you get your way. Thank you, sir. And